Hello and welcome to Beyond the Pivot, the podcast where we bring you honest, unfiltered journeys from Africa's entrepreneurs and innovators.
I'm Kabwela Malupande, joined by my co-host, Martin Vitek. Each episode, we dive deep into the realities of building and growing businesses on our continent. Let's get started. This is Beyond the Pivot.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Beyond the Pivot podcast. Today, we have an amazing guest. Our guest today is Mark Ireland. He is the team leader of the Enterprise Challenge Fund Zambia, with more than 20 years of experience in international development. Mark is currently working for Self-Help Africa, where he's the head of East Africa and Zambian region. And Mark, further on, supports high potential Zambian businesses to scale climate smart agriculture, access to finance, and strengthen rural livelihoods. Mark, glad to have you. How are you doing?
Thank you, Kabwela. Good to be here. And nice to see you as well, Martin.
Thank you, Mark. To get us started, Mark, we would like to know one thing. If you had to trade your current career for something totally different, please note the word totally different, what would it be and why?
I think, I can think of three different things. As a kid, you think, oh God, I want to be a footballer. I want to go and play for Arsenal. And of course, you realize early on that's never, ever going to happen. So you drop that dream. And then for many years, I thought, oh, God, maybe, my first jobs were in catering. Now, maybe I should become a chef or something like that. And okay, I do cook quite well. But then you watch your parents do it, and you think, that's just too much. Yeah, that's me too much. And I think the other one I have fantasies about, which is kind of, is becoming a tree surgeon, cutting a trees down, wielding that chainsaw, having that big weapon in your hand to fell a tree. I mean, I did a bit of it when I was younger. To drop a tree exactly where you want it to go, the satisfaction's really cool. But again, it's bloody hard work. Probably something a bit more practical than I do now, to be honest. I spend a lot of time, in front of a computer, in meetings. So I think I would, it would definitely be something more practical. And, early in my career, I was a fish farmer, which is kind of what got me into development many years ago. I moved from aquaculture into managing aquaculture projects, which has led me into, managing bigger development programs. So something much more practical and hands-on, either growing things or making things or cutting things down.
Because you work in the climate smart space, I wasn't going to guess cutting down a tree.
You can't plant them again, and sometimes they're dangerous. They need to come down. It's not like, it's usually, it's surgical, tree surgeon is the word, so it's about surgical removal of, trees to, stop them falling onto the houses and things like that,
I hear you.
Not clear felling for paper or anything like that, or, like we see here.
Thanks for at least providing the clarity. And I think for just our audience and guests, you've spent much of a career at the intersection of agriculture, development, and finance. What would you take us back to where this all began, and what exactly brought up the passion for the work that you've been doing over the past many years?
So in some ways, as I said, it was an accident. As a kid, I went to a kibbutz and ended up working on a fish farm. And I thought, this is a really interesting career. It's science, it's being outside, it's practical, it's fixing things, it's solving problems, it's physical. You got the sun on your back. This is great. So I went to school in the UK, did fish farming for 3 years. And then after a few years working in the UK, I had this kind of bug to travel. My father was in the Navy. My mum used to love going on, package holidays around Europe. Even though we didn't travel much as kids, I had these stories of different places around the world. So I thought, okay, let me go and travel. And at that time there was VSO, voluntary service overseas, a UK charity, and I was there in my mid-20s. I had a bit of practical experience, and they had some jobs going in aquaculture, one in Nigeria, one in Thailand, one in Bangladesh. And I picked Bangladesh, because the job just sounded most interesting. I didn't know at the time, but Bangladesh is one of these places which is full of great development thinkers. It was a really interesting environment around, how does private sector, NGOs, government work together to make development happen? And things were changing there quite rapidly, extreme poverty in many areas, especially in some of the urban slums. But it was a really vibrant place to learn about development, what works, what doesn't work, and different methodologies. And I had some amazing bosses at that time. There's a guy called Kevin Camp, another guy called Tim Robertson, real mentors for me. He's got a kid in his 20s, given this aquaculture project to manage, not really knowing what he's meant to be doing. So I suppose that was it really. That was that journey that got me on to, really being stimulated about what was possible by bringing the best of, best of the private sector, government, and NGOs together to make change happen. And then when I was there, I kind of got into, this management role, and I came back to the UK when I was about 30, did a master's, I had all this practical experience, but I didn't really have good academic experience to get better jobs. And then almost 20 years ago, 20 years ago next year, actually, I joined what became Self-Help Africa by chance. I was in this, living up in a rural part of England, thinking my time in development was finished. We just had small kids. And a friend of mine said, I need to go and check out this organization, Harvest Health. And I did. And they had a job going, maternity cover. And then 20 years later, I'm still here. So, I think for me, increasingly it's for the majority of people on the continent here, agriculture, is the mainstay of their livelihoods. Even though we're an increasingly urbanizing, continent, and Zambia itself is almost half. You could argue that Zambia is half an urban country now. It's not as rural as people think it is. And that changes that, that of course makes agriculture really central to, feeding the cities as well as creating opportunities for people, across the country if we can connect them to markets. And over the years, I've been really lucky to have a whole different range of roles, through Self-Help Africa, which has enabled me to travel extensively across the continent, from, Eritrea and Ethiopia and Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, Malawi, Burundi. And had the pleasure of seeing lots of amazing people do amazing jobs. And I suppose that's what it is. I've had that change, throughout my career. I've done different jobs. It exposed me to different people and different businesses as well. I suppose, as I've gone in my career, more and more of that work has been working with businesses. I spent some time I helped set up and spent a lot of time working with Partner Africa, which is a sister business to a sister not-for-profit to Self-Help Africa, which works on responsible business conduct and works with major brands, retailers who are operating or sourcing on the continent, to try and make sure they can have the most positive impact they can, and to make sure their supply chains are, working in an ethical and responsible way. So yeah, and through all that whole process, I met some amazing people running amazing businesses that are really trying to, transform different value chains, different countries, different sectors, and create, better economic opportunity for millions. So it's an absolute privilege, to be honest.
And you picked I've been picking one specific word, Mark, even while you were picking what an alternative career path would look like, even in your experience in the development space and impact space. And the word is practical, right?
Yeah.
Why is that important that the work that you do or the projects that you manage are practical?
Well, I think they need to make a difference. That's it. I think this last 5.5 years running Enterprise Zambia has probably been, in some ways the most fun I've had working in development. It's a big 26 million program funded by the European Union, trying to work with agribusinesses in Zambia that can impact on small scale farmers at scale. And it's been so much fun. And I think the more you can get hands on and the closer you get to, seeing the results of what you're doing, the more motivated you become. I've had roles where you're up in the sky somewhere on some regional role, and you're very divorced from what's going on a day-to-day basis. And I thought, this stage of my career, it was just so good to go back and try and take a lot of what I've learned, over the last 2-3 decades, into a project which I'm very proud of, and I feel very privileged that I've worked with some amazing companies in Zambia who are trying to make a difference. They're trying to obviously improve their bottom line, but they're really trying to make a difference for their suppliers and their customers as well.
And for our European listeners, could you describe what these companies are trying to achieve with this funding? Is it for tools, or is it for getting better supply chains? What is it used for?
So So with the challenge fund, we ask companies, to come with ideas that can, enable them to have a positive impact on small-scale farmers at scales. I'll give you a couple of practical examples there. With Alliance Ginneries, cotton company. I've been here for many years. The cotton sector has kind of collapsed in Zambia. It's been displaced a lot by other cash crops, especially soya. But Alliance Ginneries saw there was still a niche for organic cotton. So we helped them set up Zambia's first organic cotton outgrower scheme into an area to the west of Lusaka. So there for them. So if you like, the soft money, the grant money really helps accelerate and scale all that training needed around organic agriculture, as well as supporting the whole certification process. So again, it's still early days. There are a few thousand farmers to the west of Lusaka now growing organic cotton. Especially in that area, having a crop like cotton, which is more, can deal with some of the sporadic rainfall we have and drier conditions. It's really suitable part of the mix that farmers need to have. So that's one idea. So effectively setting up an outgrow scheme, the technical support, the supply of inputs, and the offtake of those products. A couple of others have been really interesting around how can you finance small-scale farmers, because a lot of agri enterprises are really important sources of finance for small-scale farmers. As you probably know, microfinance, bank finance is either inaccessible or really, really expensive. So a microfinance loan in Zambia might cost between 50 and 60%, which is high. A regular bank loan, 25, 26%. On a kwacha loan, and then when you have, which is kind of, you maybe get away with if you're a trader, but if you're if you're in agriculture and you're not going to get anything in for 3, 4, 5 months, it becomes very difficult in terms of the repayment of that. So agribusinesses are, they're very important in terms of supplying inputs on credit to farmers so they can plant, as well as the market assurance as well. So a couple of companies done some interesting things. Farm Depot, which they really focus on the poultry sector. And they managed to kind of bundle a loan with the inputs, with technical advice, so that small-scale poultry producers then had the best chance of success. Yeah. So, and again, you could scale up. You prove yourself with 200 birds, 500 birds, and you can grow your flock as you learn more. And demonstrate your ability to be able to repay the loan. And again, that was working. So that's a retailer. So working with a microfinance organization to try and design a product which is ideal for the poultry sector. And of course, the technical advice de-risks the loan, because, people know what they're doing. They're getting support and they're being supplied with good quality inputs. So they have the best chance of achieving a good food conversion ratio and therefore, making money. And I think another couple of ones I really like. We worked with a couple of mechanization companies. So obviously one of the challenges for many farmers is, still a lot of farmers are using hand hoes to farm with. You're limited then by how much labor you have. If you're just, literally hacking in the dirt, what can you clear? And a couple of companies, Sarah Agro and Grow More Technologies, we really help them expand their network of service centers and shops. And they have a finance partner. So with asset-backed finance, you can now offer hammer mills, 2-wheel tractors, 4-wheel tractors, soil irrigation pumps, much closer to where a lot of farmers are in rural areas. So rather than having to come all the way to Lusaka or to Kitwave, and travel what can be hundreds of kilometers, Zambia is the size of England. If you're European listeners, size of England, Wales, the size of the UK, France, and Germany kind of put together. It's huge, with 20 million people in it. So a lot of people are very scattered around and very distant from urban centers. Being able to take those services out closer to some of the smaller cities, towns around the country, so the provincial centers, just creates more opportunity for people and cuts their kind of cost base, which hopefully will make them more profitable as farmers going forward.
I see there's a lot of emphasis on value add business, so like when you said with the cotton farmer, maybe it was a dying industry, but you find for it a niche where they can prosper. The same with
exactly
the poultry, pretty much finding their new kind of way how to make money for that business, but also how to empower the poultry farmers as well. And the same goes with the services, because I'm sure they're going to make more money, employ more people, but also the farmers are impacted by having a better center. So
and just one other another really interesting one there as well is, again, the added value one. One of the companies we worked with was 260 Brands. and they brought to market, the first ever soy milk made in Zambia. I think off the top of my head, it's probably only the second or third soy milk line in the whole of the continent. There aren't many, or, we're only maybe the third country to do that. So really high quality product, meets international standards, even got an organic certified soy milk as well. Again, that opens market opportunities, to South Africa, or, maybe in the longer term, into Europe or the States even. So, it's really exciting. And to do that, we're coming with our grant money. They've got some impact investors. They've got their own equity they're putting in. And by combining that, you can really help a company accelerate, their vision for, where they want to get to over the next 5 to 10 years and into a kind of 3 to 4 year period. You can really try and bring that forward, which of course has positive impacts for their bottom line, but also positive impacts for, their suppliers as well and the customers.
If you're enjoying this episode, take a second to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us reach more people and keep these conversations going. Thanks for your support.
I see what is so exciting about it, because you keep on learning with every single case there is, I suppose, so it's a lot of fun to building new businesses for with the grantees essentially. And I suppose this must be very high competitive grant to apply for, since it offers so much support. So did you see any spike, let's say, in grants since AI is kind of making it easy now to write a grant, or is it still the same kind of thing as it was before?
So I think it's interesting. We did most of our calls before AI became so ubiquitous. But companies would get, consultants to come in and help them write grants. So you can have good words on paper, but when you've then got to have processes in place which helps you understand what's really there and what really is the company capable of. And I can remember a couple of companies came in, the words looked great, but nobody in the business really understood what the project was trying to do. The consultant kind of designed it, and you start probing, the guy who's meant to be managing it or the MD, and they're kind of looking at the consultant going, it's like, okay, maybe you need to go and rethink this. But I think that's a really important thing. I think where we've really seen success, and my kind of advice, this is part of my kind of key advice for people who are really interested, who think, okay, I want to go and get a grant. A grant is not free money. Yeah. The cost is compliance. We're dealing with public money. We're dealing with taxpayers' money that's come from, whether it's Europe or the US or wherever it is. So the cost is compliance. So be prepared for that. That is the cost, and you've got to just be able to deal with it. Yes, it's a pain in the ass for you. It's a pain in the ass for us as well. But, those are the rules. Just go with it, No, let me tell you a funny story. Let me tell you a funny story first. Okay, so people come in. Basically, so no bullshitting is really important, really important. So no bullshitting is, especially if you're trying to get the money in the first place. Don't bullshit. Just tell it how it is. So we had this guy came in once. My favorite bullshitting case that we had on our investment committee. We had investment committee. So great. So again, I said I was a fish farmer. So we had a big lump of our fund hopefully going to support aquaculture, but we were really struggling to get projects. Anyway, this company came in and said, we want to set up aqua shops. Great, aqua shops. So it's like a one-stop shop for aquaculture. I can go there and get fingerlings. I can go there and get technical advice. I can go there and get my food. I can go and rent a net. Whatever you need, you can go and get there. Fantastic. It's done in West Bengal. It's done in Kenya to some extent. It's done in Bangladesh. Really good idea. Great. But we said, okay, the one thing you can't do is sell dam liners, because there's been this whole thing in Zambia promoting aquaculture. We could do aquaculture anywhere. All you need to do is put a dam liner in and fill with water and feed your fish, which is rubbish. If you need a dam liner, you're not going to make any profit. Yes, you'll grow fish, but you're not going to make any money. And obviously aquaculture is about making money. So we said, okay. And he went, no, you can do it. You can. We know you can make money with dam liner. Okay, fine. Okay, bring us the data from your farmers. Okay, next week, come back to an investment committee again next week. Bring us the data from your farmers and prove to us it's possible to be profitable, growing fish growing tilapia under this model. Okay, I'll come back. So it comes the next week, puts a spreadsheet up on the screen. This is the number of fingerlings, mortality rate, FCR, this cost of feed, cost of labor. Great, looks lovely on a spreadsheet. It's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So meanwhile, you're doing your own scribbling your back of the envelope calculations there, and I'm kind of going, so you're telling us that your small-scale farmers are going to produce, 80 tons per hectare per year of fish from their system? Yes. You sure? Yeah, we see it all the time. I went, okay. So I said, okay, So in the room with me is a friend, a colleague of mine who ran one of, the most successful fish farms in Zambia, probably the best commercial scale integrated fish farm. And I said, Mike, so how much does Kafui Fisheries produce per year? He went, maybe 18 to 22 tons per hectare per year. And we're going, so you're telling us your small scale farmers are going to produce 4 times more than the best one in Zambia? It's like, yeah. Bye-bye. It's kind of, if it was The Apprentice, you're fired. So, the don't bullshit thing is really important. Be really honest with the investment committee. What is the potential? What you understand about the risks? How you're going to manage those risks? Because that's what's really important. Ultimately, as the investment committee, or as the project, you're investing in the idea. Yeah, because it's exciting. You understand from a challenge fund perspective that not everything's going to work. Yeah. So you want to understand what the risks are and how the company, has a handle on those and how they're going to try and experiment to overcome those. And we know stuff's going to fail. So there's no need to bullshit. It's really about, okay, how do you foresee the business growing? How do you see the hurdles and how do you think you can overcome them? And we're going to hold your hand and be with you on that journey. But ultimately, I think the success comes down, we've seen in terms of the project which have come to us, success is really around people. And people working to a really, really clear strategy. So, where the company has that long-term vision, this is where we're trying to get to. You've got an MD who really believes in that vision. And they believe that the project is going to help them. What they're pitching to us is really going to help them achieve that. And then they've got a great project manager who's on it day to day, who believes in it as well. You get success. And I think that's really important. The best projects we've seen, best companies we've worked with, they've really got great clarity on what they're trying to do and how they're trying to achieve it, both in terms of growing their business as well as associate impact. They're able to hire and retain great staff. And I think that's, it's like, whatever kind of business you are, that is so important. And we've seen it, through our program as well. So. Yeah.
Thanks for breaking that down, Mark. One interesting thing is I've been lucky to visit one of the farmers. Well, not one, maybe a couple of farmers on the Enterprise Zambia Challenge Fund, and just hear their success story.
Where did you go?
Oh, I think you probably don't know this. So I also run a media company, and my team supported to create highlights for the 5 enterprises that were quite successful for the Enterprise Zambia Fund. So I got to hear the story, especially on the cotton farmer. And he was explaining, especially around the organic farming, how even with him implementing organic farming methods, the yield was more. And they're able to sell organic cotton at a premium. So that was clear impact for them earning more even on the same space and piece of land. But what I wanted to find out is, in as much as this is impactful, and I like the fact that you stress that you emphasize for businesses to be profitable, how do you ensure that companies are not now becoming either grant dependent and only thinking as that would be a model for sustaining their businesses and organizations as you even support them?
I think it's something you just got to look carefully at, when you're doing those appraisals in the beginning. We did it in the end, put a cap on it. Grant funding, given the cost of finance here, a company's not going to do things which are risky and may not bring a return if they've got to do it from debt finance. Yeah, they might use some of their own money. So if you're looking for innovation, and challenge funds are looking for innovation and ways of scaling, there is a role for grant funding. And I've seen companies start off with a little bit of grant funding. Maybe they get 20, 30 to do something. Maybe they can get 100,000 and maybe they end up getting, $1 million in. But side by side, they've brought in lots of commercial finance. So if you haven't seen that kind of track record of bringing in commercial finance alongside the grants, but to the point where the commercial finance is ahead of the grant money, then you want to be very, very wary. And we did cap it. We did say, okay, if you've got, I forget the name, if more than 20% of your income is from grant funding, then we're not gonna give you more grant funding, basically. So you just got to look at it really carefully. We do look at the financials and where it comes from and look at the business model there. So yeah, it's just one of the things you've got to, part of your due diligence, really understand that. And I think, you got to, that is the thing, because we've there are definitely examples in Zambia and the wider region where, grant funding is the only way businesses are surviving rather than and that distorts the market too much potentially. So it's about trying to be fair. I think there's probably a weakness around, different grant funders sharing intelligence, because you don't have a lot of continuity between, program managers or staff and donors. There's always lots of changing goes on. So, that lack of continuity sometimes means that companies get funded again when they probably shouldn't be funded again, because they're good at selling the story. And therefore, as part of your due diligence, it's really important to go back and look at the fundamentals of the business. And what is that? What is the strategy for growth outside of grant finance? And I suppose the other thing as well is thinking about how you try and target your grant finance in areas which are kind of underserved. And I think that can be, I think it's important for investors for especially programs like Enterprise Zambia, which have grants, to really look at where they can bring added value to it, and you're not just helping a company stay on life support.
Yeah,
because they've got a nice, because company, there are lots of nice ideas and lots of good storytellers out there, and there are lots of nice things to do, but still you need to bring it back to the fundamentals. And I would say in our portfolio, there's probably a couple of companies that, okay, maybe we shouldn't have funded, but given what the outcomes were, but and there's some companies which fail and go into liquidation for various reasons, but then you've got the success side of it. So it's about taking the risk and things kind of balancing out in terms of what you achieve.
In a sense, it kind of reminds me of investment fund, right? Not everyone is going to succeed, but then the successes outweigh the failures there. So you have to be kind of counting with that, like you said. Not everybody's going to survive. And I was surprised when I was in West Africa that the number of NGOs present in the market, it was crazy to me. It was more than any businesses there, I would say. I don't have any stats for it, but it was hundreds of them in that country. Yeah. So I'm curious, because I like the model that you are promoting better than just giving money away. I know that there are some sectors that is just about grants, and it will not be different for a long time. But the promoting businesses, I feel like it needs to be supported by their own money or their investors, so they have some little skin in the game as well. Yeah. So do you see that this model is now more prevalent? Say, the funders like it better, the EU or, I don't know, USAID is probably out now, but the other institutions like this model better than just, use the money whatever you want, like?
I think you've got different things that you're trying to do there. And I would say a lot of the companies that we've worked with have benefited from more of these social programs, which might have done some basic skills training with farmer groups, might have helped with farmer group organization, might have helped them set up small revolving funds at the local level, village savings and loan schemes. So that kind of institution building at the local level within villages often acts as a really good entry point for a commercial company to come in. Without them having to do lots of expensive and time-consuming, getting people together and explaining things, they can piggyback on the back of social programs. So I think there's some really good synergies, potentially between not-for-profits, NGOs doing social programs, and commercial organizations. But that thinking needs to come right at the beginning of the program. So I see so often NGOs go, let's teach farmers to grow more. There's no point producing more if you can't sell more. From the beginning, be working with, there's companies all over Zambia that you could potentially link with from the beginning. So, you're in Chapata, the Kamo is there, they're trying to source sunflower seeds, they've got an oil press. Okay, great. So we've got our social program and we're doing maybe some water and some education, and we want farmers to grow more and earn more. Okay, fine. Let's link with Nakamo from the beginning, so we know there's an off-take supply there right from the beginning. And you're building that lasting relationship, because I think the relationship between a commercial entity and their customers or suppliers is long-term, potentially long-term. Obviously it's got to work both ways. Whereas an NGO is, here today, gone tomorrow in many, many cases. So, I think from that perspective, I think increasingly funders recognize that it is, working with private sector and trying to figure out how work with private sector to make sure they can bring services to small-scale farmers, which is what we're kind of interested in, is really important. But, ultimately within that, so many other factors are there. You need to ensure you can get stuff to market. So rural roads are really important as well. I think, I've seen projects where, almost overnight, as soon as a decent road goes in, economic development just takes off, because now you can get around, people can come to you, your logistics costs reduce hugely. So there are all these factors that come into play, which means that it's really important in terms of partnerships between, government, in terms of infrastructure, energy, enabling regulation and licensing, as well as private sector not-for-profits. And I think increasingly, not-for-profits are less suspicious of private sector. I remember when we first started working in this kind of space within Sub-Saharan Africa, it's like, why are we working with business for? Business are they're the enemy. They're trying to exploit farmers, all the time. We just want to exploit them. And well, it depends, you can have different lenses on things. Yeah, farmers are never happy with their prices, but that's the same in Zambia, it's the same in Czech, it's the same in Czechia, it's the same in the UK. People are always complaining about prices for things, but at least you can, at least you can sell what you grow, which is really important. Otherwise, you're not going to transform your lives. So I think all these things do come together. I think they'll come together, but I think increasingly you are seeing, more funding going into supporting SME development, because it is the engine of growth in many countries. But you can't just do that in isolation from, continuing to focus on these other sectors as well, infrastructure, education, especially, and access to finance as well, because access to finance is still hugely limiting for many people. They may have amazing ideas about what they want to do with their farms, but you still need to get the money together to be able to do that. Or go processing business, and you're always limited around working capital is a classic limitation for many businesses.
Yeah. And speaking about business, Mark, so I know Self-Help Africa has been quite deliberate with supporting a lot more established SMEs within the established processes, rather than early stage startups, right? What drives that specific strategic focus for Self-Help?
I mean, part of it. I mean, we do both. But obviously in Zambia, the high profile program is Enterprise Zambia. But within some of our other programs, say supported by WFP or others, we've done a lot of work with kind of farmers service centers at a very local level. So these are kind of small enterprises which have the opportunity to be able to supply products and services to or act as aggregation hubs within their local area. So we do work with smaller ones as well in certain settings. But obviously our flagship program, Enterprise Zambia, funded by the EU here in Zambia, and likewise our Agrify Kenya one, also supported by the EU, was partly driven by the recognition. So I think credit to the EU. I think they recognized that there was this space to support companies who weren't micro, because there's quite a lot of money around for lots of micro grants, 10,000, 20,000, 30, these kind of micro grants programs. And then you have, your ag devcos and others focusing on, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, mainly finance, but also some, TA grants within that. And the space in the middle was really underserved, both in Zambia and Kenya, for these amounts of money, €250,000, €500,000, but that space wasn't really there. So I think, and we got the first one in Kenya and demonstrated that, that works pretty well. And then we got the one here as well. And I think as a result of that, but we do recognize, that we have the eligibility criteria for something like Enterprise Zambia are, quite strict, because you've got you're dealing with a lot of money, so you need to have good financial systems in place. You need to have audited accounts. You need great people. You need to have some decent skin in the game, in terms of match funding. So every euro we put in, company had to put in at least €1, and they've ended up putting in, I think, €1.50 to every €1 we've put in. But if you're a smaller business, sometimes that's too much of a risk for you to take, putting in co-financing of that level. So because you're worried about how am I going to repay that? You've got to, or what if I can't raise the match funding? And obviously you need the match funding to come in, otherwise the project's not going to work. So I think recognizing that, I think with phase 2 of Enterprise Zambia, it's going to have two opportunities. One is a micro grants program, working at early stage businesses, maybe some very innovative startup ones, especially the more in the technology side of the ag sector, as well as doing the kind of larger grants programs similar to we've done under this first phase. So it's not really an either or. It's about having different opportunities for different businesses at different scales. And I think we're very fortunate in Zambia. I think we've got quite a strong ecosystem here of business support organizations. We've done a lot of work with businesses over, I would say, the last, 5 to 10 years. And a lot of businesses really, learned from that. And we've seen, new companies bringing new products to market, really helping different value chains, grow and scale more, which I think is exciting. And I think there's a lot of innovation going on within Zambia, and in the ag sector, which is great. We're lucky we have lots of regional markets on our borders. The Congo takes a lot from us. We have a lot of opportunity to sell into our neighboring countries, Malawi, Zimbabwe, Botswana. So it's we're well placed. But if we're going to really help agribusiness fly, some of the enabling environment needs to improve. So the licensing regulation needs to be cheaper and less onerous. Getting stuff across borders needs to be easier. Slowly, things improve, but that really needs to be important. Of course, in Zambia, the big elephant in the room is energy. At the moment, our energy situation makes it very, very, very challenging for, whether it's primary agriculture and irrigation, especially larger scale irrigation where you need ZESCO, or your manufacturing business, trying to turn soya into soy chunks or soy milk, and you've got no power, and suddenly you're chucking fuel, in some cases millions of dollars of diesel into a generator just to keep your cash flow going, and it has a massive impact on your bottom line, has a massive impact on how quickly you can scale your business. And it's been very, very, very painful for very, very many businesses in Zambia. So yes, we have the potential, but these other enabling factors which are constraining us a bit at the moment.
If you are enjoying this episode, take a second to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us to reach more people and keep these conversations going. Thank you for your support. I wanted to ask because I see the similarity between Czech Republic and Zambia in a sense that we are both landlocked country, and we are both like depending on the markets outside to buy from us. Like we are very much exporter country, and I see the potential for Zambia even greater than is for the Czech Republic, just because there is way more people around, way more countries around, and like you said that there is. Perhaps issue with electricity. There is maybe issue with tools because a lot of those farmers are still using hand-picked tools. Do you see any option for, like, let's say, companies from Europe to start importing to Zambia? So then there could be like potential for higher yields, more offtake, and so on, more export. Or is it? Do you think like the country is not ready for it yet, and something else needs to happen?
No, I think definitely. I think that there's and we do see European equipment in Zambia, and say, for example, quite a lot of the agro-processing equipment, you're talking larger factories, seed cleaners, other machinery to make, cereal. Turkey supplies a lot of equipment down into Zambia, for example. I've seen German equipment down here in terms of production lines. But it's the higher end, it's the more sophisticated businesses which are trying to invest in the best equipment because it's the most efficient equipment. Obviously, it's a big challenge in terms of Indian and Chinese equipment, much lower price, but maybe quality is not quite as good. So it's the kind of trade-offs that businesses are looking at. And I've seen some that often go to start, maybe it's cheaper Chinese, Indian stuff. And then when they're really confident about what they're doing and they start to think much more long-term, they go for the high quality European equipment. But yes, it's there are opportunities here. And I think, not both in terms of the equipment side, probably on technology as well, IT systems to manage, farms or businesses better. I think there are opportunities there. And we do see European investors coming into primary agriculture as well, both, on larger scale commercial farms. So there are definitely opportunities here, but you need to find good partners locally, and obviously that can be intimidating. You come into a new country and trying to figure out who do I trust here. There are good people, but you always hear of a few horror stories now and again. But no, I know several people who have come into the country and built very successful businesses because they see the opportunity and they're bringing new knowledge. Actually, I think one of the most exciting trends I see here is with younger Zambian CEOs. So maybe they're dads or mums or uncles set up the business, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And they've done okay. And, and they've had the opportunity to send their kids outside Zambia for some kind of educational work. And then I think there's this group that I see in their 30s probably coming in to take over the family business, their eyes having been opened by, what's happening in Europe or the States or, the Far East. And it's like, oh my God, there's so much potential here, and they're coming in and they're trying to, again, they come in with ideas about new ways of running the business. Different kinds of markets they could probably tap into, and they're transforming their family firms, and credit to the parents and the uncles and aunts. They're giving them that opportunity, and I think that's really exciting. I think it's a really exciting trend. I don't know, Gabriel, if you would second that, but I think of a number of companies where you've had that person who's had that exposure coming back in to run, and then really driving on with new business lines, putting in different, manufacturing different products, or building a completely new production unit, to take care of a completely new market opportunity that identified. I think that's really exciting.
Absolutely. I mean, of course, with family businesses, there's that challenge of them failing. Actually, should be by the third generation. But I think one cool trend that we're seeing is these traditional businesses that have lasted for a long time. I think 260 Brands is the same case, right? Martin, we do have
a good example.
We actually,
it's a good example.
Yeah, we have a podcast session that was supposed to happen with their current CEO, and I think they've done amazing work.
Gareth's very good. He's very good. Yeah, he's very, very good.
Absolutely. Looking at how they've transformed their product lines, how they are appealing not just to the Zambian market. I saw what they've done with soy strips as well. Like they have the organic soy strips, which is now a premium product. I think all of that you can see is being driven by growth, and I think that's really amazing. I know we're running out of time, Mark, and I wanted to find out, especially from an implementation standpoint, right? You've seen quite a number of challenges running and implementing development finance, right? If you're going to remodel it, what do you think needs to change in order for them development finance or SME support systems to work a lot more effectively? How would you remodel it?
Well, if I have to pick one thing, I would say just be more flexible on the timeframes. Obviously, when things just allocated in a 3-year chunk, a 5-year chunk, maximum 5 years. Okay, we've done 5.5 years because I managed to save money. I knew we needed longer, and I managed to save money in the budget and give us a bit more time. But I think that flexibility around timeframes is really important. And probably for 2 main reasons. Firstly, you don't know what's going to happen. A company can go through, come with a great idea, and it takes a bit longer than you anticipate to work through some of the issues, especially if you're trying to do something that's more innovative. And generally, they haven't thought through all the hurdles that are going to come. So being able to go with them on that journey for longer, I think would be really helpful in some cases. And then the challenge of having shorter term projects is people try and cram too much in too quickly, and that can be a business risk. So suddenly, I've got €500,000 here. I've got to use it or lose it. And sometimes the pressure of that means people go too fast and they take on too many staff. They use it, they get distracted, and the core business suffers because of that. So I think having more flexibility around that and it would be really, really helpful, really, really helpful. But it's hard to do in the way, especially a lot of donor finance and grant finance is packaged up. It's often very, very short timeframes. And, as we've seen with Enterprise Zambia, one phase finishes and then you've got a big gap between the second phase as well. So you lose the continuity and the momentum and the brand and all the rest of it. So, I think, being able to sequence things better, it would be really helpful. And I think also, in terms of looking at different kinds of development finance, whether it's grants like we've done, or whether it's impact investors, which are coming through people like Open Capital or one of the capital houses, investment houses, as well as the funds that come through the commercial banks, which are backed by a DFI, giving slightly concessional lending terms through bank guarantees and things like that. That's not particularly well coordinated. and a lot of it relies on personal relationships and face to face. And I know even in our space around SME support programs, we attempted a few times to try and formalize, let's get together, keep people up, and it never worked. So it's the coffees, it's making sure you go out there and talk to people so you can actually get some kind of coordination going. So I think, and again, we get these big peaks and troughs of funding. So at the moment in Zambia, a lot of programs are finished. And I know over the next 2 years, a whole lot of stuff's going to start up. So rather than having a steady flow of things that come through, the cycles, you tend to get these, real kind of peaks and troughs of opportunity for SMEs. So I think, so two things, in terms of programs themselves, trying to have some flexibility around the timing, thinking much more around how things can, link together and sequence a bit more, and how programs can help, hand off one company into another form of support as well.
Well, that's brilliant, Mark, and well put together. And what do you think, my last question for me, Martin, is what do you think are some of the biggest unmet opportunities right now in the agriculture space, in addition to that?
I think I think that, one of the key things we need to look at is soils. We're not going to continue to grow our agriculture unless we look after our soils better. So I think, companies which can look after their soils better, I think will be better placed. So you're looking at commercial farms. Big challenges around small-scale farmers. How can we help small-scale farmers look after their soils and stop them just cutting forests down? I think that's one of our big challenges is with agriculture expansion in somewhere like Zambia, especially with climate change. We're seeing a big migration from the south where agriculture is becoming more difficult into the north. That's leading to accelerated deforestation. If we're going to limit that, then farms need to become more productive. The strategies around that are really important. Sometimes it's not easy to commercialize, but sometimes we have to think again, so it comes back to this as that point I was saying earlier around linking up a not-for-profit that might be working on training farmers how to farm more sustainably with commercial offtake can be really important strategy. In terms of opportunities, other opportunities there, I think we've got to look much more, with Zambia, looking more to our regional markets, and we'll see, with the regional free trade agreement, whether that is really going to open up access to agricultural products across the region. There's still quite a lot of protectionism there, I think. And even in Zambia's case, the unpredictability around, what can we export? Can we export maize this year or not? Can we export soy this year or not? It doesn't really help investment, but the emerging trends. Okay, technology I think is really important. So I think the technology is really exciting, both in terms of information systems. If I'm a farmer, that's going to help me keep track of what I'm doing on my farm, whether that's around doing my accounts better or whatever, or whether it's technology to help me really understand what's in my soils, in order that I can then, if I'm buying expensive fertilizers, I'm putting the right kind of fertilizers on there as well. So I think technology is really important. And even simple things, these apps you have now to diagnose plant disease on your smartphone, that link into these communities of advice. I think I think the technology side is really important. It's going to be interesting to see how drones and things like that come into crop spraying and crop monitoring. I think it's exciting. And in Zambia as well, I think we're slowly seeing more mechanization coming on stream. And I think important with that is solar irrigation. So there's innovations around solar irrigation becoming more affordable. In a country like Zambia, where there's only one rainy season, is really opening up more opportunity for farmers. Being able to grow a second crop under irrigation, and that's going to become increasingly important in terms of food security here. But it needs to be done responsibly. Our water resources in Zambia. While people say Zambia has whatever proportion of water in Southern Africa, it's still fragile, especially our groundwater resources. So we've got to be careful about how they're exploited. But I think it's exciting. Solar irrigation, solar irrigation with drip lines. There's a lot of potential here to really enable small scale farmers, especially to get that second crop third crop even, or fourth crop even, if they're doing horticulture.
Thank you, Mark. I mean, we had a lot of guests already on this podcast that were Zambian, and they were actually talking about similar things, like the need for patient capital. That if you are investing in Africa, you have to be patient and supporting. Or we had AgriPredict, the technology piece, like you said, that helps farmers to know what diseases are on the farm next door, so they can get ready for it. So I feel like there are a lot of things that already exist and perhaps need some little spreading, or like I don't know, I want to say help, but assistance to tell the farmer next door. So my question maybe is, how do you promote and unlock the domestic potential for these companies to link with the farmers, and also the farmers to find these companies that are already existing in Zambia, that are Zambian owned, so they can actually promote each other, grow together, instead of rely on foreigners to just put in funding or bring their own products and so on.
I mean, I think Zambians love their social media. I think there's some great channels here on social media, that look at farming, look at different technologies different people are using, that they're promoting, sharing experience. So I think, to me, that's one way that people really connect and get advice and find out what's happening, and then also they can see if they want, they can build some kind of relationship upon that. But ultimately, it just comes down to networking and being prepared to get out there, and just talk to people. If you're really interested in getting ahead of the latest ideas, then you've got to go out there and look for them. You can't be a passive recipient hoping somebody's going to come and give you the magic solution. And I think the best farmers I know, or the best business owners I know, are inherently curious. They're always looking for what's next. They're always looking and asking the question, how can I improve things? How can things get better? And that also, the best of them are great networkers as well, in order that they can find the answers to those questions that they're looking for.
Thank you. I think the curiosity is the most important part, and practicality afterwards. Your favorite word from the beginning that Kavila pointed out. So to close
it could be a mantra for life. Be curious, be practical.
Exactly, and that's why we do this podcast. It's easier than to read books for us to learn. So, Mark, if people are looking forward, if they are looking to learn more information about agriculture, about Zambia, about funding, development, where can they find you?
Where can they find me? So, we have a website, enterprisezambia.org, which is there. And opportunities around the EU's second phase will hopefully next year appear on that website, alongside the social media channels as well, both on LinkedIn, Facebook. We found Facebook and LinkedIn to be the best way to reach people, alongside the kind of network associations. So that's a good way to keep abreast of things, is be engaged with some kind of association, and link in with the if you like, the Facebook landscape. Over the next 2 years, I think there's going to be a number of funding opportunities for ag SMEs coming down the road, from the European Union, from the Swedes, Czechs, the British as well. So while people lament the US leaving the ag SME space, I think there's going to be other opportunities coming through. So my thing, just keep abreast of things. You've got to be proactive. Ask your friends what's happening. Ask your friends if they know of opportunities, because there's some out there.
Thank you, Mark. And we are looking forward to reading more success stories down the line, especially after we know that Kavala is taking pictures of them and recording them on the video and so on. So it will be a nice collaboration that we didn't even know that existed before this recording.
So look at our Facebook page over the next few weeks. We're going to be posting lots of videos on there around the success stories from Enterprise Zambia first phase. And hopefully that will inspire agribusinesses across Zambia to get ready for phase 2. So if you are listening, are a Zambian agribusiness, my advice is get your house in order. Make sure your books are in order. Think about a pitch which is really aligned to your long-term strategy, and it's going to be core to your long-term growth. It's going to bring you benefits as a business, but also that social impact that funders are looking for as well. So always think about the difference you can make. And I see that the businesses that care a lot about their social impact are often those businesses who are most successful commercially as well, because they're really aligned. The values are really aligned internally about what they're trying to do, and they're able to retain and motivate quality staff as well. So everybody wins.
Yeah, I just heard the podcast that investor asked, "Do you want to change the world? Do you want to make money?" And they said both, but what first, right? So if the answer is first, you want to change the world, and with that make money, it's usually a better answer. So
you've got to make money. You've got to make money first.
Yeah.
Without money, you've got no choices. So I have a daughter who's a chemical engineer. At one point she's going, I'd really love to go and do what you do. I said, don't do that. Go and work in the private sector. You'll make more difference working for the private sector, creating jobs, creating economic opportunity than you would working for an NGO, for a charity. So, okay, it's different, but I think the impact the private sector has is far in excess of what NGOs do. NGOs play an important role in civil society, but if we're really going to change the country, then private sector's got to thrive.
Yeah. And please go follow Mark on LinkedIn, on Facebook, follow Self-Help Africa, so you can know first about this opportunity to open up to phase 2, so you can be one of those SMEs that will change Zambia with the help of Mark and his NGO. So thank you very much for listening, and we are looking forward to seeing you and hearing from you on our next episode.
Thank you for joining us on Beyond the Pivot. Remember to subscribe, follow, and share this episode with anyone passionate about Africa's future in business. For more stories and extra resources, visit tambotiseko.com. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and shaping the future of African entrepreneurship.